Welcome to another episode of At Home with Marltons. I'm Kat, your host, and this is where we talk about everything pet related. We share interesting facts and tips, and we bring on experts to help our community learn more how to take better care of their pets. I am joined today by the lovely Dalene Janse Van Vuuren. She is a veterinary nurse. And Dalene, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me, Kat. Really appreciate it.
No, it is our pleasure. We have been watching you on Pet Vet Nurse on Instagram for the longest time, and I'm so happy that we finally have an opportunity to sit down and learn more from you. And I'm sure that our audience today is really going to love our conversation and walk away with some really handy, helpful tips on how to take better care of their pets. Dalene, please tell me a little bit more about yourself. You have an incredible background and history. You are a qualified veterinary nurse. You've been in private practice across South Africa and the UK. You are an advocate for pet first aid. You have the Pet Vet Nurse Instagram page. You are very active in the pet community and within the pet industry outside of just, the veterinary practice. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself and your journey to where we are today?
Awesome. So I have been in the veterinary industry my whole life. My dad is a vet. My sister's also a vet nurse. And so when I qualified as a vet nurse many years ago, I did have the opportunity to go overseas, also experience that working in private practice. And then for very many years, I was able to be a representative for a pet food company in South Africa. And the past few years, and it's just as our journey basically grows, I got the opportunity to see where there's certain needs within our pet owning community. And some of the struggles and information actually came about. And for me, the big thing, as I think the years progressed, was when I saw the amount of information and misinformation that got placed on the internet, and just pet owners not caring for their pets, but actually finding it difficult to know exactly what is the right information and what's not. And that is also where my love for pet owner education actually came along, and the little bright spark idea between my sister and myself to create Pet Vet Nurse, specifically focusing on pet owner education and helping not only with first aid, but as you'll see today, some of the topics that we'll cover to really just help owners know what the right thing is, what to look out for, and should there be any problems, that they know where to go and how to take care of their pets correctly. So, yeah.
And I think that's the whole reason why we've started the At Home with Marltons podcast, is because of exactly that. It's not necessarily the lack of pet owners' care for their animal. It is often doing the wrong thing that they think is the right thing, because there's so much information out there and everyone is an expert. And the gimmicky, trendy stuff that we see on social media, I've personally tried some of them out as an experiment. Luckily, my 2 spaniels are still alive. But trying things out, like enrichment games to play with your dog. And I was like, guys, I would not recommend doing this, because actually I think it could be quite hazardous for your pet. So there is many people I believe in good faith, and because they generally think they're doing the right thing. Lovely content online, but that's not necessarily the right thing or the right thing for everyone. And that's why we started the podcast, so that we can bring the correct information, make it accessible to pet owners, so that people can make an informed decision and not be led by too much of what's out there, and maybe try and become a source where people can come to Pet Vet or to the Marltons At Home with Us podcast and know that they're coming to a credible source to help them with information. There is a lot of information out there. We're certainly not saying one is better than the other, but one also, always have to kind of approach things with a cautionary mindset and understand who is the creator or publisher of that content, in terms of, whether or not that's the right thing for you to do. And I must say, Dalene, being a pet or a veterinary nurse, I think is often not a career path that is highlighted. Many kids, when they're at school, they want to be a vet. But I think being a vet nurse is such an amazing and cool profession. How did you, obviously your dad's a vet, and your sister is a vet as well. How did you fall into veterinary nurse? Sorry, I should say veterinary nursing.
Missing, yeah. Um, no, I think the key thing there, Kat, was also it was just another. I actually don't know how to answer this, to be honest with you, because I grew up with it, so I knew that that path exists.
I only had one vet that I've been to that has a veterinary nurse. The other two vets that I was at previously didn't have a veterinary nurse. They have a nurse. That's so cool. But I think the cool thing with veterinary nursing is that it's like it's a lot more not just patient care, but it's also the pet owner care. And I think that's probably also why you're doing what you're doing right now, because it's a lot more holistic. It's your primary care is not necessarily just about the pet. You know, you are a lot more interactive and involved with the pet owner as well. So I just love it. I wish I knew that there was veterinary nursing out there, so I probably would have become one. I think it's the coolest job ever.
Now, I think the way, okay, I'm going to just try and explain it I want to say in a little, in another way. I think when we grew up, I want to say it's a profession that has been a lot more on the maps the past few years, just because from a doctor's point of view, they've got the nurses in the hospital and in clinics. So we are used to human sisters, but not necessarily the pet owner. And from a professional point of view, it is that the whole support team. I mean, you get the vet, you get the veterinary nurse, you get the veterinary physiotherapist, you get a veterinary technician. So in the profession, almost every single thing that you get in on the human side is actually available on the pet side as well these days. Even specialists. We are going to talk about a lot of different topics overall, and it is quite nice to know that there's different areas and different specialists for our pets as well. And, it's not just the normal veterinary practitioner that is out there. We do have specialists within the pet field, and the same with the nursing profession as well. So where there's a lot of areas to go into and field interest within the nursing profession, you do get private practice, you can go into wildlife, you can go into industry, there's research facilities. Then you can also specialize in terms of critical care, surgery, theatre practice. So a lot of that is more common these days that wasn't around when we grew up. We just knew that there was a vet. So from that part, that is actually the beauty of the profession, and also how things grow, that we do have other options and paths that we can
Yeah.
choose.
And I mean, like when you said it now, it's like everything you find in human medical care, the the exact same professional speciality exists within the pet, within the veterinary side as well. And I love the fact that in this modern age of information, people are exposed to so many more career paths and career options outside of what we traditionally, knew as kids growing up in the, dare I say, 80s and 90s. Sorry, I just want to. Yeah. All right. So, um, Dalene, so you've spent time in the UK as well, and I know from chatting to you beforehand and having a look at your career and your profile, a lot of time you have spent significant time, especially while in the UK, on small animal or small pet care. I'd like us to talk about that a little bit today, because I often feel small pets and small pet owners are slightly underrepresented in the pet care industry, just because dogs and cats are a lot more common, and the population of those pets in South Africa is a lot bigger. But we often find that the first pet that a family would introduce to their home is a small pet like a rabbit or a hamster or often a fish. And perhaps there's not enough that we could information being shared and helping owners around understanding what does it mean to bring in a rabbit or a hamster or a fish into your home. And maybe today we can discuss a little bit about what it means to bring a rabbit into your home as a first pet, or if you've had other pets, maybe you've had a hamster, now you'd like to have a rabbit. Let's talk a little bit about rabbits in particular, and what does it mean? How do you set your? Because for me, ultimately, at the end of this conversation, I'd really love any potential or even current rabbit owners to walk away from our conversation today and go, "Wow, I can really set myself up for success now to have a happy, healthy." a rabbit, but also as a rabbit owner and a pet owner, have the most beautiful experience on doing that ownership journey with that our rabbit in our home. And I think it all starts with to bringing in a rabbit. So if you don't have a rabbit in, so we've had everything in our house, right? Except a rabbit or a hamster or any kind of small pet. So as a potential new rabbit owner, what are some of the things that we need to consider beforehand before bringing in a rabbit into the home to understand, is it the right pet for us? Maybe there's some things that we need to take into consideration in terms of illnesses or predispositions or personality types. Often people want to put, for example, at just top of my head, it's a great pet for a small child. Is that the right thing? Are there some certain behavioral and characteristics of rabbits that pet owners need to take into consideration when they make that decision that they would like to have a rabbit in their home?
Now, Kat, there's a lot. Even when we talk smallies, our pets, our passion in terms of cats and dogs. When we are talking rabbits, what is quite important is for anyone to know is that a rabbit is a long-term commitment. This is not just a pet for a season. Their lifespan actually ranges between 9 to 12 years, even older. As I want to say,
I did not know that. Oh my gosh, 9 to 12 years? That's as long as a dog.
that
Oh
is
wow,
exactly.
that's
And
amazing though. That's amazing.
so from that point, I think the big thing is we tend to look at, movies like Peter Rabbit or certain seasons, like when Easter comes along and there's a bunny and they are a cute little thing. But what the owners don't know or realize is that a rabbit is actually a long-term commitment. And so just from a lifespan point of view, that is the number one thing that I would always recommend people knowing what they are set out for when they're choosing. I want to say doesn't matter what pet, but that, even from a child's point of view, that there is a commitment throughout that pet's life in order to reduce things like being rescued or being given up for adoption later on. So the commitment level is the first and utmost thing when, if you haven't got a rabbit yet, but you are looking at one, that is definitely, I want to say, the first thing. The second thing that I would also recommend people look at is the age of the children. Because a lot of the times we think that smaller children, bunny is a cute little thing that a child might like. But again, from a caring point of view, handling point of view, all of the things that actually a rabbit needs, that is quite important to also look from that point of view. Lifestyle as well, just where are we at in our life with the kids? How busy are we? How often do we travel? Rabbits are social animals, so this is not just a little pet that we're getting that you can put in a hutch and leave and they are all fine. They need social interaction. They need sometimes friends. If they don't have a rabbit friend, they need a human friend to interact with. And I think so from a lifestyle point of view, that is also so important for people to consider where they are at, but also then how long they can care for their pet as
Fascinating
well.
because they are very intelligent animals. I've seen people on social media and how they interact and how the rabbits are house trained in their homes, and knowing that the rabbit has a much longer lifespan than a hamster or a mouse. To your point, it is a long-term commitment, but it also makes it a beautiful pet to consider under the right circumstances and for the right family because of the lifespan, and that they are a social animal that really thrives on interaction with their human counterparts and households, so they can really become part of the home.
Absolutely. Kat, the other consideration is also not only the lifestyle and the lifespan, but also from the human pet family, the tendency to allergies. Because not necessarily being allergic, if you as a human are allergic to pets, not only that, but if you have got an allergy towards hay, a rabbit might not be your pet's best pet to consider. So just from allergies and then also space. I think that for me is also very important. Yes, you can actually, I want to say, have a home set up for your bunny and have an indoor versus an outdoor bunny, but space is of I want to say, so it's so important when you consider getting or adopting a rabbit, because they do need the space in order to live their natural habitat and also be able to stretch and get up on their legs, run, thump, do the little side kicks, all of those sort of things. Just from considering a rabbit as a pet, I would definitely look at the space available. If you are allergic, be prepared as a human. I mean, what people can even do is, for a trial run, if you don't know if you are, because this is a long-term commitment, is try and foster or even care for a rabbit. Go to the pet shop, pet them, and see how you are towards the fur, also the different types of bunnies that you've got available in terms of breeds. So there's so many other considerations that we do need to think of. I mean, budget as well. A bunny is not only a commitment, but it is quite a lot of spend. They are one of the more expensive pets to house. It's not just the hay that you are feeding. It's fresh vegetables daily. It is pellets that you might consider. I want to say it doesn't even matter what brand you are feeding, but a lot of things in terms of grooming, essential things, a hutch, it's a big outlay of spend when we are considering getting a rabbit. So from a budget point of view as well, I would want you to consider that, because veterinary care also, on a rabbit's point of view, is a specialized field, and that does actually relay back to, can you actually afford this pet? Before
Yeah.
just getting it for the cuteness during a certain period of time, or because you thought it's better to get a rabbit than a cat, for instance. The other thing to also just consider with your pet and safety when we are taking them outdoors is to make sure that the weather elements are taken care of. If it's a hot day, make sure that there's shade. If it's a cold day, make sure that there is a space that's insulated, or a place for them to actually go and burrow and keep themselves warm. So just from a safety point of view, not only looking, to protect them against the predators and against toxic plants, but also to the weather elements, especially during heat wave periods, but also during the winter. Yes, they can go outside, but we have to provide them with the correct housing or shade, or either then something warm to keep them safe.
Correct. And I think that kind of leads me into the how do we set ourselves up for success bringing our rabbit home for the first time? If we've gone through all of those considerations and we absolutely, this is what we want to do, and we love the fact that it actually is an animal that will live a little bit longer. Now, what are some of those things around our home environment that a potential rabbit owner needs to take into consideration? Make sure that I almost want to say like the must-haves that you have to either purchase or create in your home and in your garden, so that when you bring your rabbit home, you've got the right tools and environment set up for your rabbit. And also maybe for those current rabbit owners, I think maybe for them as well, through this conversation, maybe there are certain things that they can adapt that they have right now or don't have right now to make their home environment better suited for their rabbit.
Um, so one of the key things, Kat, is when we get our rabbit, or we're considering getting a rabbit, or if you've already got your rabbit, what are the essentials to actually have? The list is as long as your gift registry at your baby shower of all of the products and everything that is available to buy. So I think the key thing here is not to fall into the trap of just going out and buying everything initially. For me, it's to make sure in terms of housing. So number one, housing. Yes, you want to get the rabbit, but what housing are you considering? There's again so many different types, from a small cage to the big hutches, outdoors versus indoors. Again, that is an option. I want to say, I would actually recommend that people go to their pet specialty stores and have that conversation and actually see, according to your budget and according to what is available, I want to say which option to choose. One of the key things that I just want to mention to any rabbit owner is, when you do have those wire cages, is to really make sure that the rabbit's feet are not in direct contact of the wire. They can actually get hurt quite badly. So by providing either I want to say a flat surface or like a board or even a very, very thick part of hay at the bottom to protect their feet. That is just one little tip that I wanted to give there. But in terms of hutches and how big it is, again, it's very, very budget dependent. But what is quite important, that is just the housing part. The most important part for me, also from when you are looking after a rabbit, is its nutrition. We will dive into that a little bit later. And then also grooming products, because I mean, that is quite important to make sure that you understand that a rabbit is not just there. You have to have the correct brushes, bristles, different types. Again, whichever one you choose is up to you. But grooming equipment, nail clippers. And if you're not, I want to say, comfortable clipping your pet's own nails, you can take them to the vet. But there's quite a lot of things that you can actually get for your rabbit. Toys and boredom breakers. I think it's very
Yeah.
important to understand that it's not just the gnawing of their teeth. So it doesn't just help them to chew on something for their teeth's sake, but it is quite important to keep them busy and their mind busy. So also, yes, you do get a lot of DIY home type of things. I would recommend going to your pet specialty store and making sure that you get something that is safe, that is biodegradable, even when we are looking at litter. And that is also something that we can dive into a little bit later. Litter training a rabbit. They are just as easy as a cat to actually litter train. And that is just so cool. I want to say from a cleanliness point of view, also within your house, if you can have your rabbit litter trained. So again, it depends on, where your rabbit is going to be, outside in the garden or indoors. And then also what you can buy in terms of
Yeah.
from bedding, food, hutches, the variety, toys are all there and really dependent on budget.
I'm like now. I think I want to get a rabbit now. Like I want to get a rabbit because I did not know that you can litter train them. So and that is so amazing because that just opens up a whole breadth of opportunities for your rabbit to actually have a lot more roaming space within your home. Similar to a dog. I don't want to make the correlation, but they can almost to some extent freely roam and live in the home and they don't have to be confined to a hutch, which is amazing. So let's focus on if your rabbit's going to be an indoor rabbit, right? And they would obviously, I'd love to know more about litter training because I think that is going to be a great eye opener, perhaps for many. Maybe I'm just ignorant, but I think many potential and current rabbit owners might find that useful. So if your rabbit's going to be an in-home rabbit, let's talk a little bit about, I think the information you gave now about not having their feet touch the wire. So from a primary home housing environment or area in the home, because that's where they're going to be sleeping and potentially be put into the hutch for a little bit of time to keep them safe, or when you're at home at work or whatever the case might be.
The key thing, yes, Kat, it depends on the amount of time that the rabbit is going to be in the hutch. I mean, you can put them in a small cage for a short period of time, but a rabbit can't live in a little cage, I want to say, for the rest of its life. They have to be able to do those normal things as we spoke about earlier, running, jumping, stretching, getting up, and if they can't do that, you are limiting their basic needs. So it really depends. If you just need a cage for them to sleep at night, that is one part. And for short periods of time, traveling in a little cat carrier, for instance, absolutely perfect. But when we are looking, and this is where space comes to play, the bigger, the better, because they do need to be able to, I want to say burrow. They do need to be able to move up and down. They do need to be able to stand up. And then also knowing from a rabbit's natural instincts is that they will dig tunnels. And so your carpet might not be, the best bet, or you might think that because you've put a carpet in or laminate flooring, that is safe. I would definitely consider also bunny proofing, like we baby proof our house. I would definitely have you also consider baby proof, bunny proofing your house. wires, anything. I mean, even chairs,
Gosh,
beds,
yes, of course.
they will. Now I can't even think of the word.
No,
You know,
no, or
no. Yeah.
nibble,
Okay.
no, nibble.
Yeah, they will. They will gnaw or nibble on like wood or furniture. I mean, even wiring. So electric wiring. If you can, it is very, very important to look at keeping that at bay. The other thing is also household plants. How many of us in our homes have got the plants, just freely available? Are they toxic to rabbits or are they not? So there's actually quite a lot to bunny proofing your house to make sure that it is safe for them. And also just like our human children, it's very important to be there. And if they are outside, if they are free roaming under adult supervision, I would say that, because then you can actually see if they are in danger or where they like to eat or what they are doing, and then providing them with an alternative in terms of that.
Yeah, so I think that is quite important. As much as I was saying, like, they could have the run of the house or free roaming, you've just highlighted that they do need supervision. So if they have outside the cage or outside the hutch playtime, it has to be a deliberate playtime, stimulation time with them, because you've got to keep an eye on them, because they can not only damage the furniture or your flooring or whatever, but they can also hurt themselves. So as much as they can live a very integrated life with the family, it needs to happen under supervision. The the rabbit is an inside rabbit. Again, you can only get so much stimulation from playing outside of the hutch. Um, Taking them outside, what are some of the considerations in a garden? If you maybe have a daytime enclosure that you can put them in, what are those garden essentials that we need to be aware of when we have our rabbit outside of the home?
Okay, so the number one thing is safe from predators, and a predator is your cat and dog. So if you've got
Oh,
other
wow.
pets at home, they are considered a predator to a rabbit. So don't think that you are protecting them from the owl outside. It is also protecting them from our cats and our dogs, because it's natural instinct to see them as prey. So that is the
Mm.
number one thing in terms of an outdoor enclosure or a little tunnel that you build or whatever, to make sure that they are safe from predators, including our cats and our dogs. The other one is also safe from toxic plants. So again, if they are outside and they are about in the garden, just to make sure that the plants there are not dangerous to them. So that is quite important. And the other option is also to look at protecting them, especially against digging through to the neighbor's wall. That is natural for our rabbits. So it's quite important to make sure that when they are digging, that you can actually, I want to say, limit where they can dig, or provide them with the toys that actually encourage that. And so to keep them from doing what they would naturally do.
Mentioned toxic plants, both in the home and outside of the home, because I'm sure the list is extensive. It's not just one or two plants. Do you have on the Pet Vet Nurse, maybe on your social media account, is there a list that people can maybe go to? I'm sure everyone can just do a natural Google search as well. But where do we find, can we maybe on the Pet Vet Nurse direct rabbit owners to go and have a look at what is that list of common household and South African garden plants that might
Yes.
be toxic to rabbits?
Yes, so my reference is the American Poison Control Center is actually the biggest and the most up-to-date search engine where you could find a list of all of the toxic plants, including South African plants, that is fine for rabbits. They actually take you room by room and area by area. So if you are looking at your house, what is dangerous in the kitchen? What is dangerous or toxic or poisonous in the garden? I want to say in the barn, in your garage. So the American Poison Control Center is my go-to, because the list is so extensive. The difference between toxicities to a rabbit, a dog, and a cat is so vast. So I always refer people to the American Poison Control Center's either Facebook page or website, because the list of stuff that you can find on there is again as long as tomorrow. So
Well, I
yeah.
think what we'll definitely do is provide the links to their Facebook page as well as to their website on the podcast episode. So for easy reference, but that's amazing. And I'm definitely also making a note of that to keep on hand, even, like you say, they for a dog or a cat, it's a great reference source to go to. Okay, so we spoke about you need as large as you can possibly accommodate budget-wise and space-wise as a hutch, as maybe their primary space where they stay during the day when you're at work, or for at night when they need to sleep. You have to have some ground cover on in the hutch in the form of either really thick hay or a piece of cardboard or something that you put in. We obviously need, you've got to take some consideration in terms of how and where you're going to let your rabbit play outside, and making that safe. Baby proofing or rabbit proofing your home to make sure those like electrical wires and potential hazards and maybe some your precious stuff maybe in those areas are packed away or not in your primary area where you're going to spend playtime. So that's how I'm taking the hutch into consideration. I think it comes without saying that there'd be a food bowl and a water bowl and those kind of things that come with it. I'd love to have a chat about the grooming and the litter training. So because I'm assuming that you would buy a normal cat litter there for your little bunny to go do its business.
Yes, indeed you will. So a
Yeah,
normal
that's so
cat a normal cat litter tray is, I want to say, the easiest that you can actually buy, bearing in mind that again the amount of different brands and options in terms of just a cat litter box, what is available out there. I would suggest speak to your pet specialist, pet store specialist, in order to make the best recommendation for you. You can't get one of those houses that a cat can jump into and expect your bunny to be able to have easy access to that. So I want to say the normal, even a very basic beer box, you can actually, the sides are flat, and most important, using what is safe and biodegradable. And so if they do decide to also chew on it or nibble on it, that it isn't toxic for them. But so key there is choosing one that is easy accessible for the rabbits, easy to jump into. And then also to make sure that you use the correct litter. Now, biodegradable
okay.
litter here is very, very important. Try and stay away from the silica type things, because rabbits,
Yes.
if they ingest
Mm,
that can cause serious harm to your rabbit. But again, speaking to your pet speciality store
yeah.
representative, they will be able to guide you in terms of which products are best. I
Yeah.
mean, my go-to has been Marltons, the normal. Ach, yeah, no, I can't even.
The regular cat litter or the eco cat
Eco
litter?
wood. Eco
The
wood.
eco wood
Um,
cat litter. Because I was about to say, I would probably, if I had to go, what is made from a natural material, it would be regular cat litter because that is from a clay or rocks that come out of the ground, and then the
that's
eco wood
exactly.
litter. Yeah.
So the eco wood litter is a good option because it's not dangerous for them if they do ingest that. Also, from an environmental point of view, that is quite a nice product to use.
If you start thinking about, there are a lot of expenses to consider when bringing a rabbit into your home, but there are also some really like nice budget hacks that is not only good for the rabbit, but it's also good for your budget. And then eco wood litter it is out of, the array of cat litters that are available, it is the more budget friendly option out there. So that really helps, because if you don't have to buy the most expensive of everything out there, it's actually in this particular case, it's the best option really is to buy an eco wood litter. Yeah, amazing. And do rabbits instinct to potty in the same space? They prefer that, right?
Yes, so they're
Okay.
very scent orientated. So the problem is also, and I do just want to put this disclosure in here for current rabbit pet owners, if your bunny has been doing its business all over, it might take very long in order to get them to proper potty train, because it's just been their behavior and their normal for forever and a day. And they go where they have been doing their business throughout their life. So it's not impossible. But just so that you know, it's not as easy as getting a baby bunny and training them from the start. Very much the same as our puppies. I want to say if they first start using the carpet, then it becomes a behavior thing. It might not be just from a long term point of view. It's not gonna now overnight you are able to get your rabbit to start using just the litter box. But there are some tips in order to use the litter box. And for me, it's to start in a small enclosure. So if you do have a crate or a very small space, if you put the litter box in the little corner and also put some hay in it, because rabbits like to nibble and eat while they actually do their normal toilet behavior. So,
So they
you will
don't have
have
that. They not
you
have
will have
Instagram
the
on their cell phones. They eat while they're on the loo. I love that.
that is like reading the newspaper. Reading the newspaper while using the
I think
while
more and
using
more.
the
I'm like,
toilet.
I'm so thinking it's the animal for me.
Using just keeping them busy while they were doing it. And then also when accidents do happen, is to actually clean it up. Like if you take a piece of toilet paper and like pick up the droppings and actually go and put it in the litter box where you want them to do their litter. And also even if they urinate somewhere, just by taking the toilet paper and putting that scent where you want them to go to, they will start picking it up. It's also important to use a product that is safe for rabbits. But when you are cleaning, I want to say the urine or the little droppings, that it is a product that is safe to use, and don't use harmful chemicals when it comes to our smallies, just in terms of chemical burns on feet, but also it can cause quite bad damage from a respiratory point of view as well. Very strong
Okay.
smelling stuff. So you do get very specific hutch cleaners that will odorize or deodorize the urine stain and the little dropping places. But if you just pick it up and put it where you want them to do it, and if you start in a small space and then later on, they will know that is the place to go because they are drawn to that scent.
That's such an easy, like you say, disclaimer if it is a baby bunny that you bring in, but just using their natural scent instincts and being on top of it and kind of guiding them by putting wherever they did do their business and just putting that into the litter space where you want them to use. For me, certainly that's a game changer because that's the one thing that's always put me off about smallies is that, having to clean the cage and, you dealing with feces all over the place. That's not something that I, like is incredibly appealing to me. But knowing that a rabbit actually prefers going into one space and keeping the environment clean, and they can quite easily be potty trained or litter trained, I think that really opens up a lot of opportunity in terms of, consideration of that maybe I can have a rabbit. And that's a really, really handy tip in terms of how to, use that natural scent and natural instinct into the litter spot, or the litter tray. I wanted to also, it's about the cleaning, right? Um, so hay, there's a couple of things now that I'm like, hay is not just for eating, right? Hay could also be a basic bedding or natural kind of, instead of like, if you think about dogs, it's kind of their blanket, but they also feed on the hay. The having litter is another essential that then we need to bring into the home. The hutch cleaner or spray. So we shouldn't be using any kind of home cleaning equipment. Is it safe to consider? There's lots of and I wouldn't recommend, I'm not talking about those citronella or wash and get off kind of sprays for dogs. But there are some urine neutralizers in the cat and dog space. Not to go into any specifics or anything like that, might be a difficult one to answer, so just let me know. But would there be certain dog or cat urine neutralizers that are safe to use, or is it just safer to stick with products that are that specify its cage and hutch deodorizers and cleaners?
Yeah, cat again, it depends on the brands, and there's so many different brands on the market. I would actually recommend going to the pet specialty store and making sure that something is rabbit safe.
So we've got our home set up and everything. The one thing we haven't touched on is on nutrition, right? So you mentioned in the beginning that they do require specialized or a very special diet. So there's many things that they need to be feeding on, and not just the pellets or hay or, dare I say, lettuce. So what are some of the basics or the main dietary needs of a rabbit? And then what is a balanced meal? Let's start with the basic that we'll talk about the do's and don'ts maybe a little bit later. But what are the basic nutritional needs and what are the fundamentals of in terms of products we should be feeding rabbits?
So I want to say when I look at dietary needs, most important is hay. 80% of a rabbit's diet should consist of hay. Please not lettuce. Lettuce is highly, I want to say, toxic to rabbits. In fact, it causes diarrhea and dehydration, and that can lead to death. So one thing that is a misconception with rabbits is the whole lettuce thing. There's a difference between fresh vegetables and lettuce specifically. Iceberg lettuce, if we also think about how quickly that, the moisture goes out, it is not good for the rabbit's digestion. So hay, 80% of the diet should consist of hay. Now, if we compare to us humans, remember when we grew up, we had the food pyramid and like how much of your diet should consist of a certain nutrient, then going all the way up to like, sweets and chippies and all the bad stuff. It's like that
Yeah,
little
all
tip
the
at the
sweets,
top.
all the stuff, yeah, all
Now,
the bad stuff.
all the bad stuff. And I think that is the key thing to understand from a rabbit's perspective. When we are looking at nutrition, the base and the most, I want to say, what the diet should consist of is hay. The second thing that it should consist of is fresh vegetables and even some fruits. Now, what is safe for a rabbit? We just spoke about please do not feed lettuce. But what is safe is things like spinach, kale, carrots are safe. Apples without the seeds. There's a lot of safe, fresh vegetables and herbs. I mean, rabbits, like your parsley, rosemary. I mean, there's so many things that they can choose from. But your fresh vegetables should be about 10 to 15%. So if we're looking at 80% is hay, then 10 to 15% is fresh fruit and vegetables. Only 5% of that rabbit's diet per day should consist of pellets. Now, again, if we're looking at the amount of food that people, they buy the rabbit pellets and I think that is food sorted and they just chuck it there. That is a big problem in terms of causing overweight rabbits, which is a huge health concern for bunnies. And also the pellets, a lot of the pellets are not formulated as complete and balanced. And so again, I would speak to your pet specialist store representative to ask them which brand they recommend. But very, very important is to know when you are buying a product to always look at the feeding recommendation or like the feeding guide at the back of the packet, because that gives you a very good guide of how much that rabbit for its weight should eat per day. And to bear in mind that pellets should only be between 5 to 10% of the rabbit's diet per day. Fresh vegetables and fruit should be about 10 to 15%, and 80% should consist of hay. And it's because of the way that the rabbit's stomach is, is made up. They are not a cat. They are not a dog. So they can't eat what even us humans eat. So just in terms of food also to where we have to be quite cautious, also from a nutritional point of view, is rabbits can't eat lactose. So any dairy products can be very harmful for them.
No, no.
The other one is bread and crackers. I mean, that carbs, it's not safe for rabbits. So again, if you are not sure, I would really encourage you to speak to, a rabbit professional. Information also from the links that we will share today, that is reputable websites where you can get some great information on rabbit care, and specifically nutrition. But also to remember that hay is not just hay. You actually get different qualities. And depending on, again, price and budget, if you do spend on a better quality, it is more nutritious than to just have normal hay or offcuts that you can use for bedding. So it's also just important to know that all hay is not the same quality, and even things like lucerne, Timothy hay. I mean, there's a lot of different types that you can feed your rabbit, but also that lucerne is not hay. So it's a totally different nutritional, I want to say, brings nutritional value to your bunny. One of the key things also that is so important is fresh and clean water. We tend to forget those. But rabbits do need fresh water, and also depending on how they grew up. Certain baby rabbits were taught how to drink from the little water bottle with a nozzle, and other ones, if you, for instance, put that water bottle in their hutch and then they don't drink water because they're not used to it, that can also lead to quite serious problems in terms of dehydration. So by giving them an option and then seeing, especially initially, do they prefer water just from a plain bowl, I want to say open bowl, or do they prefer to drip to use the drip bottles? But fresh water is also, I see that as part of nutrition, such a key thing to make sure that they do have access to fresh and clean water daily as well.
And I think this is a very important thing to ask when you buy your rabbit, from whoever you're buying the rabbit, is how are they drinking water at the moment? If they are drinking water out of a spout or a drip spout or out of an open bowl, so that you don't end up buying a really fancy drip spout and then they don't drink from it. It's such an easy thing that we can negate from the beginning by just knowing that you should ask the question: is this what type of water bowl or equipment are they currently using? And in that way, saving yourself potentially, a couple of rand. And I think also going back to like some of the budget hacks, right? So you can get like normal hay from the farmer, maybe your uncle, or someone who knows someone who lives out on a farm. You can get the really inexpensive hay for bedding. Understanding that 80% of their nutrition comes from hay, that is where you're going to want to spend your money and buying the best quality hay for your rabbit. And the treat part of your rabbit is basically that they can't eat any kind of carbs or anything like that. But like you say, 10 to 15% of their diet is then from really lovely fresh fruits and vegetables, some herbs and other green leafy vegetables that you can include in their diet. And that's almost like for them, that's they treat, almost like their lovely part of their meal, but their mainstay is a good quality feeding hay. Yeah, that's amazing. And I did not know that. Oh, and pellets. You said pellets as well, right? And then 5% are pellets.
Yes, it depends also, again, it depends on the brand, and it depends on I want to say, the weight of the rabbit, how much they should eat per day. But that the tendency is you buy the rabbit pellets with the rabbit and you think that that is their food. And unfortunately, that is not. And it's just because, yeah, the minerals and the composition of that is a complete and balanced diet, but it does help with adding 2 calories and adding, and if we only feed that part, it's really, I want to say, let's say, too much of a good thing becomes a
Mm,
bad thing,
mm.
because then that also leads to other health issues, which we'll go into now.
Yeah, so I think, and that really is a good point. Like, I think perhaps many rabbit owners have it the other way around. And although pellets are really wonderful, like you say, complete and balanced meals, they are, from a calorie point of view, quite high. And if you feed too much of it, it can lead to some problems. So, the big thing for me, when we started chatting and we started talking about smallies and rabbits, the handling a rabbit is something that became very personal and to the forefront for us as a family. One of our closest friends, whose daughter is 11 years old, so she's old enough to have a rabbit. They bought a beautiful little dwarf rabbit for her. Didn't know that the little rabbit was pregnant. Everyone was playing with it. And then unfortunately led to her giving birth to stillborn baby rabbits, which was incredibly traumatic for the rabbit, for the whole family, for us to know that she had to go through that. And it really highlighted to me that there is a proper and correct way for handling them. They are just like when a puppy is brought home, we're like, be careful. They're still very, they don't have thick and strong bones yet. They're still very pliable. They're baby puppy, they're baby dogs, they puppies, handle them with care. But it really brought to the forefront for me that they are very small, fragile little animals. And if we don't handle them correctly, it could have detrimental effects on the rabbit. So that at least was my experience. So in your expert opinion, is there some guides and tips in terms of how rabbits should be handled? We always see like putting a rabbit up the hat on the ears. Is it safe to carry the rabbit on the hat? But I do think
Magic
that there
trick?
is.
No.
I do think that in all seriousness, so I'm making light of it, but it is quite a serious topic. And like I said, for me, it just brought to the forefront that there's a bit of an educational piece that needs to happen about what is the proper handling techniques and what are the do's and don'ts with a rabbit, because they are fragile. They are smallies, as you refer to them, and they should be handled with the appropriate care and gentleness.
So I think the first thing is to understand from a behavior point of view, rabbits are prey, and anything, including human, are seen as a predator. So even if you go and pick up a rabbit, their instinct is they need to get away, and they either go and I want to say like go into a hiding, or they're very, very scared, or they will kick back. And so that is a natural reaction from a rabbit. Doesn't matter how trained or how tame they are. So again, it's very important initially. It depends on if the rabbit is used to being handled or not. And also being handled is a stressful situation that we are putting them in, when not only by picking them up, but also by the handling. When you are brushing them, they are not used to it. It's something that we should train them, to be comfortable with, if I could say that. When it comes to handling, there are misconceptions, and we do refer to, you pulling the rabbit by its hair out of the hat when people are doing magic tricks. That is unfortunately not a correct way to handle or pick up a bunny. Please never ever. I mean, there's so many nerve endings on the tip of their ears, and if you pick them up by the ears, you can actually cause great harm to them. So please never ever. I want to say handle a rabbit by its ears. Also, don't scruff a rabbit. If you pick up a rabbit by the back of its neck and you scruffing it, that is I want to say that is a hurtful and also a very predator-like behavior, because it mimics the clawing of a owl, or I want to say some other bird of prey actually coming to pick them up. So their initial reaction will be that flight and kickback. So there are correct ways of actually picking up a rabbit and handling a rabbit, and we will share some very nice pictures with you. But what's quite important is to pick the rabbit up by its front legs, and I want to say supporting their body next to yours and bringing them
Almost like a
up.
baby.
Almost like a baby.
Yeah.
So if you've got hold of the two front legs, and I actually don't have the demonstration here, but we will be able to share some nice visuals with you. But by
Visual.
picking them up and putting them against your body, and then you can turn them and hold them and then stroke them. That is the safeness that you are creating. And not just by using the picking up of because that is hurtful, and that is really not, it's a very cruel way of handling a rabbit. Also the risk of getting kicked, because if you just pick up a rabbit but like under its arms, like kids tend to do, because they think it's the front and that you just pick it up, the power of a rabbit lies in its back legs. And let me tell you, blood gets drawn if you don't know how to correctly handle them. So by supporting them and scooping them up and actually making their back and body safe on you, that prevents that kicking, jerking reaction where you will then get hurt. And the problem is, a lot of the times when children pick them up and it's incorrectly done, they kick, the children drop the rabbit and they can get, yeah, because it's just normal reaction, but there's certainly ways in order to prevent that. So the cuddling, the control is in the front legs, the support on the back, and putting them close to you, that makes them feel nice and safe. Okay.
And I think that's the key takeaway for me, is that it's about not just being hurtful, but it's also causing unnecessary stress by grabbing them, or not grabbing them, but taking hold of them in a way that instinctively they associate with a predator
Absolutely.
behavior or experience, and that then leading to, kicking, etc. So kind of the way that you described it, and we will put up a lovely picture that illustrates that it not only creates a nurturing kind of safe environment, so they're probably more prone to being picked up in that way, but also you kind of ensure that they don't kick, and as a result, you drop them because you
Hurt,
kind of get a fright. Yeah,
hurt
yeah.
you
So
or
that's
hurt them.
amazing. Yeah, exactly. And so for me, it kind of leads into, if the rabbit gets hurt. So for me, kind of going like, in case of an emergency with a rabbit, for me, there's two things. So the one is, how do you choose a vet? Right in the beginning, you said, they live, any life expectancy is anywhere between 9 and 12 years. So just like with any other pet in your home, choosing a vet is going to be very important, because of the lifespan of your pet that's with you. How do we choose a vet? Because there are obviously, not every vet may be comfortable working with a smallie, or maybe your existing vet that looks after your dog is well suited, but maybe just there's a couple of things that you need to have a conversation with him or her about. So can you just go to any vet? Are there some tips and tricks in terms of choosing a vet? How do I, as a rabbit owner, make sure that I have the necessary veterinarian backup in case of an emergency, but also some routine healthcare that needs to happen with my bunny?
So I think the key thing here that is something that's very easy, is to ask your regular vet. So whoever your vet is, your current vet, ask them if they are familiar with rabbits and do they have a special interest in rabbits, because rabbits treatment and everything how they get handled is totally different from your normal cat and dogs. And also, a lot of the times, if we tend to treat with other products first and then you take them to the specialist later on, or not necessarily just specialist vet, but a vet who's got a special interest and know how to care for rabbits, know what products, or what medicine to actually give to them, that is quite important. So my first thing is, ask your vet. Ask your vet if they are familiar and would they be willing to treat a rabbit. If they are not, Google is your friend. You can actually find within your vicinity these days who are the vets within your immediate surroundings, who are the specialists. And then in the main cities like Cape Town and Johannesburg, we do have specialist exotic vets in South Africa. I mean, some of the best. And so both in Pretoria, Johannesburg, and then also in Cape Town, there are specialist vets that actually do treat and know how to treat and specialized in working with rabbits and smaller exotic pets and birds. So I would always recommend, start with your local vet first, ask them, and then also if they're not familiar, then go into, I want to say, the search. We will also provide you the details of the specialist vets. So if there's anytime, an emergency with your rabbit, to know who the correct, I want to say, person is to phone. But also, if you are struggling to find a vet that has got a special interest in rabbit care, is to then just go onto the website and see there.
Yeah, and I think that is certainly what we aim to do. And you've got lovely friends, close colleagues in Cape Town that obviously are exotic vets, and we definitely want to make that accessible to rabbit owners or potential rabbit owners. So if you've maybe just got the rabbit and you haven't had the conversation with your vet yet, and there is an emergency, we will provide a list of vets that we feel, does do specialist or exotic veterinarian medicine, like you refer to them, Dalene. The big thing is that, if we have a vet in place, regular vet or a special exotic vet, two things for me, two topics I think I'd like to just maybe in closing have a quick conversation about, and well, I shouldn't say quick because they are vitally important. The one is around emergencies, right? So like I have, Nurofen and plasters and some basic things in my kit at home for my children, and likewise for my dogs. I've got a couple of basic things that I always have in the house. Are there any particular things that is really helpful and useful to have in the home for a rabbit owner? Maybe what kind of emergencies or issues are you most likely to encounter? And then the other question in my mind now is like, do they need to be vaccinated? Is there like, do they need to be dewormed? Are there a couple of routine things that you would need to take your rabbit to the vet to, regardless of emergency or not? They do need to have some basic things done on a regular basis.
So I think let's start at the end or at the beginning is preventative care. Prevention is better than cure. So from a healthcare point of view, I would definitely recommend you take your rabbit to your vet for regular health checks and making sure that they are healthy. You know, like we do with our children, how we do with our dogs and our cats, by going to the vet like on a yearly basis, definitely having that overall health check, making sure that the heart, everything of the rabbit is actually functioning, I want to say normally. And then this is also then going into the facet of what to look out for and then going into emergency. So for me, what's quite important is there's some common health issues that are, I want to say, very common with rabbits, but whenever it ends up in an emergency, you have to go to the vet. It's the same as us. We will not be breaking our leg and then sit on the stoop for 2 days, drinking some tea and thinking what to Google, should I get to the vet or not? When it's a case of emergency, it is always important to get to the vet as soon as possible, because the time that it takes for you to just ponder about things can be literally the choice between life and death. And also when it comes to rabbits, something that is very common, for instance, that if you leave it, a common health concern, if you leave that too long, it might end or result in an emergency and death if we don't take care of that. But just so there's two extremes. The one is prevention is better than cure. Definitely, there has been a big diarrhea. It's a viral infection that actually made its rounds or made its way to South Africa as well, where a lot of bunnies died. And it is a preventative thing that you can actually vaccinate your rabbits against. So I will suggest speak to your vet about that. The second part is parasites. So yes, fleas, ticks, worms, they also occur in rabbits, but very, very important. Never ever use dog and cat medication on a rabbit. You have to get very, very specific, I want to say anti-parasite medicine. Speak to your vet to get the correct brand, to get the correct dose, all of that, if you do have a concern in terms of that. Because you can't put dog products on a cat. You can't put cat products just on a rabbit. We have to make sure that we use rabbit safe medication. So that is the first thing.
Yeah.
Otherwise, that will end up in an emergency situation. The other part of it is to actually also, so that is prevention. I almost want to say go to your vet. The second part is the common health, general things that can actually happen to your rabbit. But if you don't take care of that, or if you ever sense something is wrong, I want to say, and I'll tell you some signs to look out for, but if you ever see that, I would suggest go to the vet immediately.
Yeah, immediately. Yeah.
Immediately. Don't, it's the same as with us, Yes, you can have a first aid kit, and I am a big advocate. I mean, there's my first aid kit. I always have it ready and prepared, because when there is an emergency situation, you don't want to be running around scrambling, then not knowing what is safe. So when you do make up your kit, it's actually to go to your vet, to go to your pet specialty store and go with a list of things. And what we will do is we'll put up the list for you on some essentials that you can build your emergency kit, I want to say, with. But basic things like if there's going to be scratches or bites or blood, to have bandage material, a thermometer to actually make sure if the pet is dying of heat stroke, or if they are busy, if they are so cold, which we call the term hypothermic. When they're so cold, they are actually in shock. So there's really a lot of basic things that you can put, I want to say, in your first aid kit, as I want to say, as basics, but it's not to the extent of a dog and a cat. And I just think it's also because if something goes wrong with your bunny in terms of they stop eating, you need to get to the vet because they need the proper treatment. This is not home remedies first and then wait to see, because if your bunny stops eating, their gut stops working. And that is serious, serious health issues for them. And that actually leads to death. So just some of the common problems, if we can quickly go through those, it's dental problems. So teeth, the rabbit's teeth continuously grow. And that is why the hay, not only from the stomach's point of view, but that is why hay is so important. Rabbits constantly have to chew in order to keep their teeth grinded. But in certain bunnies, not only directly related to diet, but also environmental factors or genetic factors, their teeth actually grow too quickly. You need to get to the vet because they can properly, like you will go to the dentist, they will actually have proper procedures in order to help with those teeth.
Okay.
You can't just take something and cut a rabbit's teeth. Please do not do that. I want to say, yeah, that is not one to do at home. You need to get to the vet. The second part is what we call gastrointestinal, which is the gut. So gut stasis. Now, stasis means everything stands still. And that usually happens when your rabbit stops eating, the gut won't work. And their gut needs to work in order for a rabbit to be, I want to say, absolutely in top and mint condition. The
Yeah.
health condition. And then the other part to that is also not only gut stasis, but also diarrhea, which is very common. If you, for instance, give too much of a good thing or something like lettuce, your bunny's tummy will go runny. And diarrhea, the risk of diarrhea is when they get dehydrated and you can't, I want to say, help to soothe that gut and stop the diarrhea. That can also, they can deteriorate quite quickly. So again, the one part is the stopping. So if you don't see any droppings, like if doesn't matter if it's in the litter tray or not, if you stop seeing droppings being produced, that is of big concern. But also if you don't see the normal droppings and you see diarrhea, also of concern. The other big health concern, and that is actually not very commonly talked about, but it is obesity in rabbits. And it is because we are putting these rabbits in little hutches or little cages. They don't get the exercise, what they should, and we overfeed them by not giving them the correct, I want to say, ratio or correct diet. And that leads to being overweight. And the other common thing is also respiratory infections. So respiratory is with your lungs and breathing. And a lot of the times, if you see your rabbit, I want to say, like discharges coming from the nose or the eyes, like difficult breathing, or they like a wheezing sound, if you see your bunny is struggling, I want to say, please take it to the vet. Then also some uncommon, but it is, I want to say, when you're looking at the specialist centers, some common things that we do see is bladder stones in rabbits. And that is if a diet is too high in calcium, they lead to bladder stones because their body can't get rid of the excess calcium. So there's a lot of things that can actually go wrong, I want to say, with a bunny. But by getting the basics right initially, correct diet in the right amount, caring for your pet, but also knowing what to look out for, that is of, I want to say, of utmost importance.
Well, Dalene, I've had the most fun talking to you about rabbits today. I was never, I love the idea of a rabbit, but now I really want one. I think they are just like one of the coolest animals to have. And they're a lot more social in a home than just, sitting in a cage and running on a wheel. They can be they can be a social addition to your family. I love that. I think they're a wonderful pet to consider to bring into one's home. Is there anything else that you feel on your list that we didn't catch?
So just to end also with the preventative care, and when we look at what is wrong, what signs to actually look out for. So we talked about the common health problems when it comes to our rabbits, but there are certain signs and symptoms that I also want pet owners or rabbit owners specifically to look out for. Now, the one thing is if your rabbit ever stops eating or if there's any change in appetite, because that is the first sign that they are not feeling well, because rabbits constantly eat. Whenever you see them, they are busy nibbling and gnawing on something. The second thing that goes hand in hand with eating, so what goes in must come out. And so droppings, if you see any change in the droppings, either in the amount, so you don't see any droppings, or you see a change in drastic change in color, or I want to say shape, in terms of being very, very soft, or diarrhea versus no droppings at all. The other one is also any behavior changes. If you are used to your bunny coming to greet you and all of a sudden they don't, something's wrong. And what goes hand in hand with that behavior changes is also their posture. If they are hiding or in a hunched posture, that shows a big sign that something is wrong. So, and then the other one is also if they grind their teeth. If you ever hear grinding of teeth like that, they are in severe pain. So just not normal when they're eating, but when they are sitting there, hunched posture, and they're grinding their teeth, that is a sign that something is very seriously wrong. The other one also to look out for is breathing problems, or if you see any discharges coming from your rabbit, I need you to get to the vet immediately. So that is just some of the signs to look out for with our rabbits that I feel is quite essential, but it's certain things that we don't always think that it is serious, but by hiding or by hunching and not showing you something is actually showing you that they are in pain or something is wrong.
Yeah, no, that's very helpful. It's kind of helping decode some of those behaviors to say these are things that means you've got to get to the vet. And about some of the behaviors, so they do certain things like we spoke about them digging and they do thumping, the Bambi thumper, boom, 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 comes to mind. What are some of those normal animal behaviors that we see in rabbits and that is helpful for rabbit owners and potential owners to know about?
So one of the key things is thumping in rabbits means a warning signal. They are warning you. So that is a normal behavior, but it signals that they are feeling threatened. And so when a rabbit starts to thump, it is a sign of them, please back off. You know, it's not, I want to say, perceived as the funny with Thumper in Bambi. It is actually, they feeling scared. So thumping is very, very normal. The other one is binkies. Oh, this is such a cool word. But when they do binkies, it's like that where they jump, and they do these side kicks and things. So it's such a cool, natural movement. You know, there's nothing wrong with your rabbit. They're not crazy. You know, they are actually
I
having
love
fun and
that.
it's so normal for them. Chewing and digging, as we said earlier on. And then the other one is tooth purring. But that is like a soft, grindy noise. It's not the crunching of the teeth while they're hatched. When they're nice and relaxed, you might sometimes hear just like, it's literally like a cat purring, but it's their teeth that
To say it's like the purr of it's the purr for a rabbit. I love that. I love
exactly.
rabbits more and more.
Exactly. And that often all happens when you are busy grooming them and they are feeling nice and relaxed. So when you start to hear that grinding teeth, the purring actually of the teeth, that is actually very, very normal when they're nice and relaxed. And then another normal behavior, and that is just, I do want to reiterate this, hiding and freezing is actually a sign of discomfort. And it's a response because they are prey. They are not predator. And we are predator when we come at them. And when they are, when there's a loud noise or an unfamiliar situation or a person going or a child going for them, if they hide or they freeze, it's their natural behavior. It's not, but it is a sign of being, I'm freezing, I'm scared. So those are just
Yeah.
some of the fun things about knowing your rabbit and knowing normal versus not normal. Because if your rabbit keeps on freezing, it's not that they're ill, it's because your approach should maybe changed in terms of, yeah, absolutely.
No, I
There
love
we
that. And I
go.
think it is all about decoding it, right? So thumping, as much as Bambi has kind of made us, oh, it's a cute little thing. It's actually like, I'm feeling stressed. I'm not feeling comfortable.
I'm warning you.
Please back, please back away, or I'm warning you about this particular person. And then that freezing behavior. And we should be the ones that change and modify our behavior to make our rabbits feel more comfortable and safe in the home.